Omar had never planned to buy a car from a police auction, but money was tight and his old bike was falling apart. He stood in the crowded lot with a small paper cup of tea, watching people point at cars like they were choosing fruit. The air smelled like dust, engine oil, and hot sun. When a dark gray sedan rolled forward, Omar felt something pull at his attention, like the car was waiting for him. The auction officer spoke fast, calling out numbers and rules while people raised paddles. Omar kept his face calm, but his heart beat hard in his chest. The sedan looked clean enough, with only a few scratches near the bumper. The windows were slightly tinted, and the inside looked neat from the outside. When the bidding slowed, Omar lifted his paddle once, then again, and suddenly the car was his. He signed papers in a small office where a fan pushed warm air around the room. The clerk stamped documents without looking up, then slid a key across the desk. "No refunds," the clerk said in a tired voice, like he had said it 1,000 times. Omar nodded, trying to act confident, but the weight of the key in his palm felt serious. He walked back to the lot as if he had just bought a whole new life. Omar sat in the driver's seat and took a slow breath, letting his fingers rest on the steering wheel. The car started with a smooth sound, not too loud, not too weak. The dashboard lights blinked, then settled, as if everything was normal. He checked the mirrors and the seat position, then drove out carefully, feeling proud and nervous at the same time. The city roads opened in front of him, and for the first time in months, he felt ahead of his problems. On the way home, Omar noticed small details that made him like the car more. The air conditioning worked well, and the radio played clearly after he found a station. The seats smelled faintly of fabric cleaner, not smoke. But there was also a strange silence in the car, like it had been kept away from people for a long time. Omar told himself he was imagining things, because he wanted this purchase to be the start of better days. When he reached his neighborhood, the late afternoon sun turned the street orange and gold. Omar parked near his building and stepped out to look at the car from different angles. A neighbor named Rafi walked by and whistled softly. "Nice ride," Rafi said, nodding at the sedan like it was a prize. Omar smiled, but he did not mention the auction, because he did not want anyone to guess how cheap it was. That evening, Omar decided to clean the car properly, like it deserved respect. He brought a cloth, a small brush, and a bottle of cleaner down to the parking area. He wiped the dashboard, the center console, and the inside of the windows until they shone. Each small job made him feel more connected to the car, like he was fixing a piece of his own future. When he opened the passenger door to clean the side panel, his fingers caught on something loose near the bottom. Omar leaned closer and pressed the panel lightly, then felt a soft bump behind it. It was not the sound of a normal door, not the flat, empty space he expected. He tried again, tapping with his knuckles, and the dull thud answered him. The panel did not look broken, but it felt wrong, as if something inside was pushing outward. Omar's smile faded, and a cold curiosity replaced it. He searched the edge of the panel and found a small gap where the material did not sit tight. Omar glanced around the parking area, even though no one was close enough to care. Then he used the brush handle carefully, sliding it into the gap. The panel shifted with a quiet pop, not loud, but sharp enough to make him stop breathing for a moment. The gap widened, and Omar saw a hint of plastic wrapping inside the door. Omar's hands began to sweat as he worked the panel free little by little. He did not want to damage the car, but he needed to know what was hidden there. The panel finally came loose enough for him to pull out a tightly wrapped bundle. It was long and flat, sealed in thick plastic and taped like someone wanted it to survive water and time. Omar held it up under the streetlight and felt his stomach tighten. For a moment, Omar thought it might be something dangerous, and his mind ran through wild ideas. But the bundle did not feel heavy, and it did not make any ticking sound. He carried it upstairs to his apartment quickly, locking the door behind him. His room was small, with a single table and a worn sofa, but it felt safer than the open parking lot. He set the bundle on the table like it was a sleeping animal that could wake up. Omar used scissors to cut the tape slowly, careful not to slice what was inside. The plastic opened to reveal an old brown envelope, a small key on a ring, and a folded cloth. The cloth looked like it came from a uniform, faded and soft from age. Omar unfolded it and saw a stitched patch with a number and a short name, worn but still visible. The envelope had no stamp, only a simple message written in dark ink: "If you found this, do not ignore it." Omar stared at the envelope until his eyes felt dry, then finally slid a finger under the flap. Inside were 2 photos and a short letter, written neatly as if the writer had practiced the words many times. The first photo showed the same sedan, but newer, parked beside a building Omar did not recognize. The second photo showed a young woman holding a little boy, both smiling, with the car behind them. Omar read the first line of the letter and felt the room tilt slightly, because it addressed someone by name, and it was not his name. Omar read the letter again, slowly this time, letting every word sink into his mind. The name written at the top was Samir, and the tone was calm but heavy, like someone speaking from far away. The writer explained that the car once belonged to him and that he hid these items because he had no other safe place. Omar felt uneasy reading words meant for another man, yet he could not stop. The letter spoke about fear and trust, about how Samir believed someone honest would one day find the hidden bundle. He wrote that the key belonged to a storage unit on the edge of the city. Inside that unit, Samir claimed, was something that could change lives if used the right way. Omar's hands trembled slightly as he folded the letter back into the envelope. Omar sat on the sofa and stared at the photos again, studying the faces. The woman looked kind, with tired eyes but a warm smile, and the boy held her hand tightly. Omar wondered where they were now and why Samir had lost the car. The thought that this vehicle had been part of another family's story made Omar feel like an uninvited guest. Still, he knew that finding the bundle meant he was now part of this story too. That night, Omar barely slept as his mind kept replaying the words from the letter. Every sound in the building felt louder than usual, and he checked the door lock more than once. He did not tell anyone about what he had found, not even Rafi. The secret felt too big and too strange to share without knowing more. By morning, Omar had made a decision that scared him but felt necessary. After work, Omar drove the sedan toward the address written in the letter. The road led him away from busy streets into an older part of the city. Buildings there looked tired, with faded paint and quiet corners. The storage place stood behind a rusted gate, watched by a small office with dusty windows. Omar parked the car and sat still for a moment, gathering his courage. The manager was an older man named Bashir, who spoke slowly and looked at Omar with careful eyes. Omar showed him the key, trying to keep his voice steady. Bashir checked a list and nodded, then pointed toward a long row of metal doors. He did not ask questions, which made Omar both relieved and nervous. As Omar walked down the row, the air felt cooler, like the place held secrets. The key fit the lock perfectly, turning with a soft click that echoed in the narrow space. Omar lifted the metal door, and dust fell to the floor. Inside, the unit was small but packed with boxes and a single wooden chest. Omar stepped inside, his heart beating hard, and closed the door halfway behind him. The silence felt heavy, pressing against his ears. Omar opened the boxes first, finding old clothes, books, and framed photos wrapped in paper. Each item looked carefully placed, not thrown away, as if Samir planned to return one day. The photos showed the same woman and child, sometimes smiling, sometimes serious. Omar felt a deep sadness he could not explain, like he was standing inside someone else's memories. Finally, Omar turned to the wooden chest sitting at the back. It was locked, but the small key from the bundle fit easily. Inside, he found stacks of documents, notebooks, and a cloth bag. The documents looked official, filled with stamps and signatures. Omar did not understand everything, but he could tell they were important. The notebooks were filled with neat writing, explaining how Samir had uncovered illegal actions connected to the car's seizure. According to the notes, the car was taken unfairly, used as part of a larger cover story. Samir wrote that he tried to report what he found, but was ignored and warned to stay quiet. Reading this made Omar's chest feel tight. At the bottom of the chest, Omar found the cloth bag, heavier than he expected. Inside were small metal bars wrapped in paper, dull but solid. Omar did not need to be an expert to know they were valuable. His mind raced as he realized why Samir had hidden everything so carefully. This was not just about a car, but about truth and risk. Omar closed the chest and sat on the floor, breathing slowly. He felt torn between fear and responsibility. Keeping these items could change his life, but it could also bring danger. Samir's letter had not given clear instructions, only a warning to act with honesty. Omar wondered if honesty would protect him or make things worse. On the drive home, Omar kept checking the mirrors, imagining he was being followed. The city lights felt brighter than usual, and every sound from the engine made him tense. When he reached his apartment, he carried only the notebooks and documents inside, leaving the rest hidden for now. He locked the door and leaned against it, feeling the weight of his choice. Over the next few days, Omar read everything carefully, trying to understand Samir's story fully. The notes showed dates, places, and names connected to a case that was quietly buried. Omar realized that Samir had tried to protect his family by hiding the truth, hoping someone braver or luckier would finish what he started. This realization filled Omar with respect and fear. Omar finally decided to look for the woman in the photos, believing she deserved to know what happened. He searched public records and old listings, following small clues left in the notebooks. Each step made the story feel more real and more dangerous. Omar felt like he was walking a thin line, but turning back no longer felt possible. One evening, Omar found an address that matched the city in the photos. He stared at the screen for a long time, knowing that knocking on that door would change everything. His hands shook as he printed the address and folded it into his pocket. The past was no longer hidden in a car door, and Omar was about to bring it into the open. Omar stood outside the building for a long time before going in, watching people come and go. The place looked ordinary, with clean steps and small plants near the entrance. Nothing about it suggested secrets or danger. Still, Omar's chest felt tight as he checked the address again. He told himself that truth mattered, even when it felt uncomfortable. He climbed the stairs slowly and stopped in front of the door marked with a simple number. Omar knocked gently, then waited, listening to footsteps on the other side. The door opened, and a woman stood there with cautious eyes and tired features. Omar recognized her at once from the photos, though she looked older and more worn now. The woman asked who he was, and Omar introduced himself calmly. He explained that he bought a car at an auction and found something hidden inside. Her face changed when he mentioned the car, and she held the door tighter, as if deciding whether to close it. After a moment, she stepped aside and let him in without saying another word. Inside, the apartment was neat but quiet, filled with small signs of careful living. A boy sat at a table doing homework, his head lifting slightly when Omar entered. The woman told the boy to go to his room, and he obeyed without complaint. Omar felt the weight of responsibility grow heavier as the door closed behind the child. The woman introduced herself as Lena, her voice steady but guarded. Omar placed the envelope, photos, and notebooks on the table between them. Lena stared at the items for a long time before touching them. Her hands trembled as she picked up the letter and began to read, her eyes moving quickly across the page. Tears filled Lena's eyes, but she did not cry out or make a sound. She closed the letter and pressed it to her chest, taking a deep breath. She told Omar that Samir was her husband and that he had disappeared years ago. Authorities told her to move on, saying there was nothing more to investigate. Omar listened quietly as Lena spoke, sharing memories she had kept locked inside. She said Samir was careful and kind, always believing that honesty mattered. When he found signs of wrongdoing connected to his work, he refused to stay silent. Lena said he became distant and worried, always watching the door and checking the street. Omar explained what he found in the storage unit and what the notebooks revealed. Lena read through the notes slowly, nodding as if pieces of a puzzle were falling into place. She said Samir once mentioned hiding proof in case something happened to him. Hearing this confirmed her fears and answered questions she never dared to ask. They talked for hours, going through documents and photos together. Omar suggested taking the evidence to people who would listen and act fairly. Lena hesitated, afraid of drawing attention, but she also knew the truth deserved daylight. She looked toward her son's room and said she wanted him to grow up knowing his father did the right thing. The next weeks were difficult and tense, filled with meetings and careful steps. Omar stayed close, offering support whenever Lena needed it. They shared information with trusted investigators who promised to review everything honestly. Each visit drained Lena emotionally, but she stood strong, guided by Samir's words. Slowly, the story began to reach the surface, moving through proper channels. Questions were asked, records were reopened, and long-ignored details were examined. Omar watched from the side, proud but anxious, knowing that even small progress mattered. Lena's strength amazed him, especially when fear tried to pull her back. One afternoon, Lena received a call that changed the mood in the room. The investigation confirmed Samir's findings, and steps were being taken to correct what was hidden before. It was not a loud victory, but it was real. Lena closed her eyes and whispered Samir's name, finally allowing herself to breathe freely. Later that day, Lena and Omar visited the storage unit one last time. They stood together as Lena touched the boxes and chest, thanking Samir quietly. Omar felt like a guest stepping back from a story that was never his to keep. He knew his role was almost complete. Lena decided to keep the personal items and let authorities handle the rest properly. She thanked Omar with sincere words, telling him that his honesty brought peace to her family. Omar replied that finding the bundle changed him too, reminding him that choices matter. They shared a quiet moment of understanding. Weeks passed, and life slowly returned to a calmer rhythm. Omar continued using the sedan, but it felt different now, lighter in a strange way. He often thought about how close he came to ignoring what he found. Each drive reminded him that truth can hide in ordinary places. One evening, Omar parked the car and looked at the door panel where everything began. He smiled softly, feeling gratitude instead of fear. He learned that courage does not always come with noise or attention. Sometimes it appears when someone chooses to do the right thing quietly. Lena later sent Omar a message saying her son asked about his father with pride. That single message stayed with Omar longer than any reward could. He realized that helping others find closure can be the greatest gain of all. The car that once held a secret had carried something far more valuable. Omar moved forward with a clearer heart and a steadier sense of purpose. He understood that life could change direction in unexpected moments. A simple purchase at an auction had connected him to a story of honesty and strength. And because he chose not to look away, that story found its ending.